Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Unless you're new, then hi, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favourite ever TV shows, and that TV show is Black Mirror. So Black Mirror is a show that I started watching in about 2016 when it came onto Netflix. My boyfriend was watching the new season. I watched about half of an episode and was like, hang on, I need to go watch this for myself because I really like it. So I went and did that and watched it all within like a day. Black Mirror is truly a show that I have never seen before, which is exactly why I wanted to discuss it today. Before we get into this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up because it lets me know you like these type of videos and I'm really enjoying creating them. So thank you so much for all the love on my last video. It means the world to me, so thank you so much. And also hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any of my uploads. Just to pre-warn you though, I will be spoiling this show. I'm going to try and say as little as possible, but sometimes it's just not possible depending on what I want to talk about, so there will be spoilers throughout this. So if you haven't seen Black Mirror, I highly suggest you go watch it and then come right back here. Black Mirror is a TV show that first aired in December 2011 on Channel 4. It was a Channel 4 owned show and it's an ongoing series, at least we think so. We're not 100% sure at this moment of time. But every episode of Black Mirror is completely different. Different actors, different characters, different places, different years, different worlds, but they're all kind of the same world at the same time. It's very confusing, but if you've seen it, you'll know what I mean. Black Mirror is also kind of in its own genre. You'll hear a lot of people say, oh, that was very Black Mirror, when something futuristic happens in technology or something bad just happens in the world. In 2010, 2011, when Black Mirror was being created, the worst thing someone would say about a mobile phone would be that it's just taking up some time on your lunch break, whereas now the whole world has kind of gone a little bit Black Mirror. I personally think Black Mirror is incredibly clever. Charlie Brooker, who is the writer of Black Mirror, has somehow made this anxiety-filled, realistically bad future that we all can relate to now. So the question is, are we already living in Black Mirror's bad future? Black Mirror does really well of exploring different genres. We have love and romance, we have horror, we have mystery, we have comedy. There's something for everyone in there. However, there are some reoccurring themes throughout the show, such as technology being the blatant obvious one. We've also got society and also relationships. Everyone knows that Black Mirror is about the future of technology, bad technology if you will. A huge giveaway to this is the name Black Mirror, which is the screen that you see when you turn off your electronic device, whether that's a laptop or a phone or a TV. That's Black Mirror. Your first thought when you see a piece of technology in Black Mirror is, oh my goodness, this is a really good idea. But by the end of the episode, you couldn't think of anything worse. I'll talk about the tech when I'm talking about each episode, otherwise I'll be repeating myself over and over again, and this video is already going to be long enough anyway. But a huge theme other than technology is society, so I want to look into how Black Mirror comments on society as a whole. The first episode is called The National Anthem. Now, this episode actually makes me feel physically sick. It's kind of a shock that this is the first episode anyone ever saw of this program, but then again, it is Black Mirror and there is no boundaries. I won't talk about this episode in full because I'll never be monetized again, but it is scarily accurate to something that somewhat happened in real life. Charlie Brooker obviously didn't know when he was writing the script for this episode. He had no idea that this was ever going to happen. But the idea of the whole country wanting to watch the Prime Minister do this life-changing, horrific act, even though they voted him in, is brilliant. People were disgusted and felt really bad for him, yet people still sat and watched it even though no one had to. It's not to the same scale, but society really loves to watch people and celebrities be embarrassed on TV. We have shows like I Am a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. We have Big Brother, which isn't really around anymore, but for a good chunk of time there was Big Brother. And there's also shows like Love Island. So already these reality type TV shows where we are just embarrassing people and putting people in uncomfortable situations for our own entertainment already exist. It's a pretty bold move for a first TV show episode, but I kind of rate that. The Waldo moment in season 2 also explores the theme of politics and us as a nation with our politics. The whole episode is all about satire, like 99% of Black Mirror episodes are. So Charlie Brooker was on 10 O'Clock Live, which was a comedy show, and he would get tweets after being on it saying, "You should run the country." And he would think, "No, I shouldn't, I'm a comedian." And that is where Waldo was born. There's been jokes about celebrities running for the Prime Minister or the President for years now, and Waldo was a joke candidate. Like in the UK, we had people like Lord Buckethead and Elmo. People could actually vote for them. They knew they were never gonna win, but they were there for people to vote for them because they didn't want to vote for boring politicians. Unlike most joke candidates, Waldo actually ends up getting a lot of support because he goes on a show a little bit like Question Time, where he rants about politicians all being the same, they're untrustworthy, they lie all the time, you know, all the things you hear the public say. So that is exactly what they want to hear. Waldo doesn't win, but he does beat all the major parties other than the Tories, obviously. And it's just clear that the country is fed up of normal politics. However, we've seen when a country is so fed up with normal politics that they do indeed put someone in office, like Donald Trump. Still can't believe that's a thing. It's been 4 years and I still can't believe it. But it becomes clear that they are far worse than boring politicians. White Bear in season 2 is a Black Mirror favourite, and it's one of my favourites too. I truly think it's an excellent piece of TV. It fits perfectly into the theme of society, but also into this idea of entertainment punishment that you're gonna hear me say a few times during this video. Charlie Brooker got the idea for White Bear when he was filming a show called Dead Set. It was another show that he did where basically a bunch of people were in the Big Brother house when a virus hits the world. Does sound very, very familiar. The only difference is the virus is people turning into zombies rather than what's happening right now. However, it is a weird Charlie Brooker coincidence. Again, he has loads of them. We'll talk through them as we get into this video. But in Germany this year, there were people in the Big Brother house when a virus hit the world, and they all found out while they were in there. But anyway, they were filming Dead Set, and there was an actor running away from a zombie, and some kids were just walking past, and instead of helping or asking what was going on, they just got their phones out and started recording, and Charlie Brooker thought, oh wow, this is actually more terrifying than what we're actually filming. White Bear was also made at the same time where people would start getting their phones out when they saw something tragic happening rather than running away or finding help. And we see this at the start of White Bear when Victoria is running, pleading for her life, for someone to help her, and all we see is a load of smiling bystanders with their phone out filming her because she has no idea what's going on. And at this point, neither do we. So it kind of made me laugh watching it because I was like, what is going on? But at the same time, it's kind of a reflection of what we do now. So White Bear is obviously like the Truman Show in the fact of like, oh, surprise, this is a TV show and you're the star and you had no idea. However, something that I felt like it was really like was Darren Brown's The Push. So Darren made a whole show on how easy it is to manipulate people into doing whatever. So he hired a whole crew, so everyone was an actor who was scripted, they knew what they were doing, and an innocent person was just in this, and by the end of it, they would end up pushing someone off a building. And this was all for our entertainment. I mean, like, I did watch it. I didn't like it, but I did watch it. It reminds me of White Bear because we are watching these people being manipulated into doing all these different things on TV purely for our entertainment and for a TV company to make money off of it. This kind of TV show already exists, so of course it would work if you used it on a convicted criminal like in White Bear. But is it wrong? Yes. But will people watch it? Yes. In the last scene, we see Victoria in a clear plastic cell, if you will, and we see these smiling bystanders again with their phones out, yelling abuse, throwing things at her, and filming it for their social media. It seems ridiculous watching it, but then you think of people like Ted Bundy. We saw people doing this at his execution. We see this at court where there's loads of people waiting outside for the people to come for their trial, and we also see this by people that are just targeted by the media for sometimes not even doing things that are that bad. Moving on from White Bear, we have my favorite episode, which is Shut Up and Dance. I'm going to try and say as little as physically possible because I really want you to go and see this episode if you haven't, and I want you to see it completely blind because it's one of the only episodes or shows or films ever where I didn't see what was coming. This episode is about the fear of technology that we have, but also looking into that same conversation in White Bear of punishment and entertainment punishment, what is too far and what is right. Guaranteed, whoever is watching this video right now, 9 out of 10 of you probably have a sticker on your laptop of some kind. I do. I know so many people who do. And this is an episode where you go, yep, I need to cover my laptop camera right now, even if you know you haven't done anything bad in any sense at all, but the thought of someone like recording you and watching you through your laptop screen is terrifying. But why does this fear only go as far as our laptops? Why not our phone cameras? Why not the apps that we're downloading? Why not the websites you go on where you just press yes to them having all your data just to get rid of the pop-up? The scary thing about Shut Up and Dance is that it can happen to anyone right now. We see this kind of thing all the time with things like revenge porn. People are blackmailed into sending money, into going on dates with people, into doing all sorts of things just to make sure that your video isn't going anywhere. But this entertainment punishment comes from people watching, people like Kenny or the other characters in the show being blackmailed, and they can watch it live in the comfort of their own home, and they feel like they can watch it because they're bad people. But what makes these people watching any better? The season 3 finale is called Hated in the Nation. Again, one of my absolute favorites. However, I feel like this is the one that is most relevant to right now. You might be thinking, how on earth are killer robot bees relevant to the world we're living in right now? I've got 2 words for you: cancel culture. Hated in the Nation again explores this entertainment punishment, but this time in a slightly different way because the punishment is now down to society, down to anyone. In Hated in the Nation there is a hashtag death2, which becomes a trend. So what you'd have to do is write the hashtag in a tweet along with a name of the person that you would like death to and a picture of them, and then by the end of the day there will be someone who is number 1, the person that has the most votes, if you will, and they will be killed by the robot bees. It's just a very extreme version of hashtag so and so is over party. Out of all the episodes I've spoken about so far, this is the first one that uses this bad technology that I was talking about at the very start of this video. So basically these scientists have created these robot bees to be able to keep pollinating the earth, because obviously bees are going extinct, very sadly, save the bees. But there's the conversation of the bees are being used to spy on us by the government. We hear things like this all the time right now with things like targeted ads on Facebook or even Amazon Alexas, which I hate, by the way, won't go near them, don't trust them. But what I found really odd rewatching this episode was the comparisons that I could find within like the last 2 months, because the first person the people send these bees on is a journalist who criticizing a disability rights activist, and then we have a rapper as the next one, and then we have a girl that is pretending to pee on a war memorial. Do what you will with that information, but all 3 draw parallels with people that have been cancelled over the last 2 months in real life. By the end of the episode, 387,000 people use the hashtag death2. However, then the system does change and flips completely around, and the bees attack everyone that has used the hashtag, meaning there was 387,000 deaths. It's this same question of what makes these people using the hashtag any better than the people that have actually done wrong. The detective spoke to a woman who said that it was funny, it was a trend, she didn't really mean it, which I'm sure if you spoke to 90% of people in these cancelled or so-and-so is over parties who are sending death threats, they're going to say the exact same thing. But does that make it okay? We do need to be held accountable for what we are saying online as well as offline, but this is a very extreme version of a consequence. This isn't me saying that cancel culture needs to be stopped, because some people do need to be cancelled. But sometimes people do go just a little bit too wild with it, but that is why this episode works so well. Also, cancel culture never actually works. You can cancel someone this week, but next week you'll see them at #1 on the chart. But this episode is just a world where cancel culture actually does work, but to a very extreme level. Black Museum from season 4 is another incredible episode and one of my favourites, and I personally think Charlie Brooker should have left this episode to be the last ever Black Mirror episode, but that is just my personal opinion. We have Rolo showing Nish around the museum, which is full to the brim with Black Mirror Easter eggs, and he basically explains through a few pieces. So the first story is one of the grossest stories ever. The second story is just really funny to me. I think it's one of the funniest stories out of the whole of Black Mirror. The final story is about a black man that is falsely accused of murder, and Rolo fools him into signing a contract that when he is executed, his digital consciousness will go to him and his museum. Rolo then uses his consciousness to upload him as a hologram, which is a little bit different because we hadn't seen that yet in Black Mirror. But he did that so people could come to the museum to pay extra to execute the black man. But this man can feel it every single time. Every time he's executed, he feels it, but the difference is he can't die. But every person who executes him gets to walk away happy that they've executed a black man, along with getting a souvenir keychain. Soon a white supremacist comes and pays an extra amount of money to make sure he can execute him for even longer, and he takes it and he ends up frying his brain because of it. The cookie technology in Black Mirror was made to make people's lives better, to make it easier for them to do things like making toast in the morning or being able to be on time at different events, not to make a black man suffer. But when power and money gets involved and the technology gets in the hands of the wrong people, people do get hurt. But let's move on to a slightly lighter note, which is the start of season 3, which is Nosedive. Season 3 is where Black Mirror changed a little bit because it was no longer fully British or a Channel 4 show like the previous 2 seasons. It was now funded by Netflix. Some people say this is the downfall of Black Mirror, but I have to disagree. Some of my favourite episodes are in season 3, including ones that we've already spoken about, like Shut Up and Dance and Hated in the Nation, and also another favourite of mine, which is San Junipero, which we will get on very shortly. But people get very protective over things like TV shows, and I think people just got a little bit salty that their low-key Channel 4 TV show became very mainstream. But the reason it became mainstream is because it's so clever and brilliant. So Black Mirror came onto Netflix with Nosedive being the first episode. Everyone said that it was going to be all American now and high production, so the first episode was set in LA. Nosedive is the most like us today because Nosedive is just a higher tech version of all of us right now with social media. We watch this girl Lacey who is living in a world where the economy is based off of ratings on yourself. So anyone can rate you from 1 to 5 star, a little bit like an Amazon review. People can rate you on the photos you upload, on what you're doing with your day, who you're friends with, who your family are. It's Instagram, but in real life, all the time. But in Nosedive, the points can determine what kind of car you can have, where you can live, what kind of house you can have, where you can shop, etc, etc. So people like Lacey are incredibly fake nice to everyone they meet because they want to get higher in life. But can you blame her for that though? Knowing you can have a good life, not just for yourself, but also for your future partner and your kids growing up. Is it really a problem with the person / society, or is it a problem with the system? We are all incredibly worried with what people think of us. However, some people will go to the greatest lengths to make sure that people like them, even though they don't probably like them all that much. Like Lacey driving hours to get to a wedding full of 4.9s just to get there and have the lowest score. But when her score is low, she is happy because she finally gets to be her full self. Weirdly, since this episode came out, China started using this rating system for people. So even though this idea of this episode feels like a metaphor for us on social media right now, it is actually a reality. My final episode I want to talk about society in is 15 Million Merits in season 1. 15 Million Merits is one of my favorite, I know I keep saying it, but it's one of my favorite Black Mirror episodes, from Daniel Kaluuya playing Bing all the way to the concept of the episode. Charlie Brooker got the idea for this episode because he was sat at home with the TV on, with his laptop, iPad and iPhone in his hands, and his wife Connie Huck, yes, the Connie Huck, and she says, "You'd be happy if you were in a box and the walls were all screens." And so 15 million merits was born. Bing is working like everybody else on these exercise bikes, which add up lots of merits that you can use on basically in-flight entertainment. That's it. Not for anything else, not the world, but for really bad TV shows and to skip a few adverts and to eat bad vending machine food. You could say that's what all of us are doing right now, but in just a much more dull way. One of the bad TV shows is called Hot Shots, which is basically the X Factor, which Charlie's wife Connie worked on the Extra Factor at the time of this episode being created, and the episode was actually put on TV for the first time on Channel 4 straight after the X Factor final, which was on pure accident. Once he's on the show, he performs a really bad dance, but then he pulls out a shard of glass and holds it to his neck while he says this really raw, emotional, in-depth speech about how bad the system is, basically, to which they offer him his very own TV show. This is showing society's ability to process something like Bing's very raw emotional speech into entertainment, and he trades in everything, his beliefs, his principles, for a slightly bigger cage and a little bit less exercise. Charlie Brooker says that the TV show Bing ends up going on is a little bit like his own show Weekly Wipe, is another show that Charlie Brooker did, where he just complains about anything. Also, when people were watching things like Hot Shots, they have their own avatars as an audience rather than a real audience behind the judges. And recently, because obviously there's a huge thing going on in the world right now, there's been a lot of virtual ways of doing TV, and I saw America's Got Talent where they had a virtual audience sat behind the judges, and I honestly thought it was a screenshot from 15 Million Merits. Another huge theme in Black Mirror is relationships, whether that is romantically, family, or friendship, but these episodes also include technology a lot more than the society ones do. The first time we explore this futuristic technology and how it can get in between relationships is in season 1 in the entire history of You. The idea for the episode came from someone calling up Charlie Brooker crying because they found out that their husband was cheating on them, and they found out by looking through Facebook. This episode already feels extremely real and like it happens now, even though we don't have the grain, which is the technology in it, because people already do go to these lengths to find out if their partner is talking to someone else, looking at someone else, or just cheating. People will look through their partner's phones for messages, for pictures, for their search history to see if they're searching certain people. But when people are doing this, they're only going to find things that are going to upset them, like Liam does in the entire history of You. Liam makes his wife go through all her grain memories, which is a little bit like Apple iCloud, but the difference is it's recording 24/7, so you can keep everything ever. And he makes her find the clip where she sleeps with this guy that he is suspicious of to make sure he is wearing a condom, so he knows that his kid is 100% his. And he also goes and attacks the guy and makes him delete every single grain memory of his wife because he is so insecure about it. He goes to these great lengths when actually his kid is his and his wife really did love him. Yet she ends up leaving him with his child because he just ruined the relationship completely over absolutely nothing. Speaking of cheating, let's move on to Striking Vipers in season 5. Sorry, this is the only episode I'm going to talk about from season 5. Striking Vipers to me is one of the funniest Black Mirror episodes I think I've ever watched. I couldn't stop laughing watching it because it was just so ridiculous. These two college friends reunite later on in life and discover this game called Striking Vipers that they both really love. And you basically have this VR headset type thing which transports yourself into this game fully while your actual body just kind of lays there. It's quite a funny image just on its own. They soon work out that even though you can feel every punch, every kick as they are fighting, they work out they can feel a whole lot more. These two friends come into the game to have sex with one another while in these other characters' bodies, and one of them has a wife who has no idea what's going on. But is this cheating if it's not really him? We see people today falling in love with avatars. We see people leave their living, breathing partners for these avatars. And some people just prefer to date avatars, which is already pretty well known in places like Japan. Later, the wife does find out, and he compromises with her, that he's allowed to go in to play the game once a year if she gets to do the same thing but in real life once a year. But does that really match up? Another Black Mirror favourite is San Junipero, and this is one of the most beautiful and one of the only happy episodes in Black Mirror. I'm gonna have to spoil this one big time though, otherwise I cannot talk about what I want to talk about. San Junipero is about this digital consciousness that we've been talking about throughout this whole video, but this time it is in the afterlife. In San Junipero, two people fall completely in love with one another in this digital consciousness world. The beautiful thing about this episode, even though it is about a load of dead people, is that it's about two women that completely fall in love. They would have never have met, they would never have been able to fall in love with one another in the real world without any consequences. But in this digital afterlife, they get to be young and in love with whoever they want. We all have this obsession with where do we go when we die? Is there a heaven? Is there a hell? What happens? Do we go into someone else's body? So what if we have the technology to completely control what happens after we die as well? Be Right Back in season 2 has the same element of this digital consciousness afterlife type thing, but this is in a much more disturbing and somewhat sad way. Be Right Back was a heartbreaking story about a girl who loses her boyfriend too soon, and at the funeral she meets a girl who talks to her about this online chat room type thing where you upload all of the grain memories into it, and the chat kind of like works out what he would say, what kind of jokes he would make, what he's done in his life, and you're able to talk to him online as if you were talking to him. Of course, this isn't actually him because we can't bring people back from the dead, but people will try. There is actually a chatbot in real life called Griefbots, which is exactly the same as the software in Black Mirror. You upload their texts, their emails. It's about accepting and talking about the death of a loved one rather than staying in denial about it. But personally, I'm not 100% sure if that would do any good to anyone. I feel like you're then just holding on really closely rather than letting go, but each to their own. There's always this fascination of bringing people back from the dead when they have died too young, and Black Mirror with this episode have brought that idea to life. Later in the episode, she buys this, I don't even know what it is. It's like a robot type version of her boyfriend, and it has all the same codes and the software, and it knows everything about him from the grain, but it's not actually him, and she soon realizes that it's just not right. You can do all these things to make him seem as real as possible, but at the end of the day there was just small little twerks and small little things that he would do that this robot thing wouldn't do, and she couldn't take it anymore. And at the end of the day it was doing more harm than good. At the end, when she puts him in the attic, it is honestly one of the saddest scenes. Instead of letting him go and letting the grief go, she holds onto it and just puts it away, so it's out of sight but it's just never gone. Archangel in season 4 is again one of my favourite episodes, but I know a lot of people really didn't like this one for some reason. But Archangel is about a mum who almost loses her child and decides to invest into this software called Archangel, which implants something into her child's mind so she knows where she is, she can track what she's doing, she can block certain things that are dangerous to children, like blood, death, sex, even dogs. Of course, parents want to save their children from the bad parts of life. They don't want them going through the same mistakes that they went through or see the same things they've seen. So of course, people want to protect them as much as they can. So if a piece of technology came out like Archangel, people would 100% use it. We already have small scales of this protection, like child lock on cars, parental lock on some TV shows. We have kid-friendly accounts on things like Netflix, but there are also spying apps that parents can download onto their child's phone so they can track every message, every photo, where they are, what they're saying. No one should ever be spying on their kids or any person to this extent. I know people want to protect them, but there is just going way too far with it. Once Sarah is a teenager, she tells her mum to turn off Archangel. She wants to live life as a teenager and make her own mistakes and grow up on her own like a teenager should. However, the mum can't help it one night when Sarah is late coming home, and she decides to look to make sure she's okay and ends up watching her daughter lose her virginity. I don't think I could ever talk to my mum if she invaded my privacy like that ever again, which is exactly what happens. She ends up hitting her mum over the head multiple times with the Archangel device and then leaves home. You may think being really overprotective over your child is a good thing to save them from the bad world that you have seen, but at the end of the day, you're just pushing them further and further away. Obviously, I haven't spoken about all the amazing episodes that Black Mirror has to offer, like Hang the DJ, Playtest, USS Callister. There are so many more, but I truly love this show so much, and I'm really intrigued and interested to see where Charlie Brooker is going to take this next. Seeing as in March this year, Charlie Brooker said in an interview that he's not sure if audiences could stomach another season at the moment with everything going on. But I think I've gone over enough in this video to ask the question again: are we living in Black Mirror's bad future?